Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing, here giving you a personal prediction for Robeisy Ramirez versus Isaac Dogboe. And as always, this is just my take. Of course, your prediction can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all. Kind of an under-the-radar fight, so certainly would like to hear your guys' thoughts and predictions on all of that down in the comments section below. And a little bit of fight info here. We have Ramirez taking on Dogboe. This will be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This will be airing live on ESPN with a vacant portion of the featherweight title on the line. So, just my take here, but this one could be a very good fight, in my personal opinion, of course. This is kind of a bit under the radar, as I mentioned, but a lot of the better fights tend to be nowadays, just because you just never know where the action's really going to come from. With Ramirez, you have a hungry, amateur standout looking to prove he's an elite level fighter, ready for the best at 126 and probably at 130 pounds eventually. In Dogboe, you have a fighter looking to prove he still belongs, a former titleist in his own right, and there's a vacant 126-pound title on the line as well, which of course makes it all the more fun. So, does Ramirez's speed and power prove to be too much on the night, or will the toughness of Dogboe pull off the big upset? Let's break this one down. Starting with Ramirez. For Ramirez to win, I think you want to work that right hook, left hand combination. This is a combination I think works pretty well for you if you're Ramirez. You like to loop that right hand around the guard anyway, and I think this is a shot you can land on Dogboe. That, of course, will set up that left hand in the process. What's more, even if you're just working that right hook at times, especially to start, it's at least something that's going to score. It's going to start to pepper up Dogboe a little bit and at least keep him weary. Then if he starts moving into that left hand, all the better. You don't even have to really line him up so much as he is lining himself up. This, of course, can also keep Dogboe from circling away out in more into the direction of that right hook, and of course keep him kind of more lined up with where you want him to be, and ultimately allow for you to push him into the ropes where he is far less effective, and of course where you as Ramirez will be looking to try and do some of your damage. So certainly a shot, or a combination rather, that I would look to work in this fight. I would also say use angles and space. Now this can be done a couple of ways. One of the ways, of course, is by getting your lead foot on the outside and sort of squaring him up, boxing him up, if you will. Once there, this allows for you to kind of step in and land that left hand rather down the middle, but of course it'll also allow for you to throw that right hand because you'll be in a good, perfect position to be able to do it. This will allow for you to move your head better, use your angles better, make Dogboe miss, and then be able to counter that as well. You can really show some decent hip flexion and some movement from that waistline, so it's certainly something that you should try to implement in this fight and create those angles and the space you're looking to create. You also have the longer reaching jab that I think if you find the positioning for it will allow for you to push him back, and then you can really start getting going, because I think once you get on the front foot, you tend to be a better fighter, and that's what you should be looking to do in this fight, in my opinion. I would also say cut off the ring. Dogboe will look to move at times and kind of keep you guessing in what direction. He likes to circle at times, tries to box a bit more, especially if someone is going to put on some effective pressure. You have to keep him cornered. This will do a couple of things. For starters, of course, it will force more exchanges, which I think favors Ramirez most of the time because I think he has the quicker, straighter shots with a little more authority at times. But also, it just means that you're going to be able to fight at the pace you like to fight at, as opposed to having to chase Dogboe around the whole night. I think ultimately Ramirez is going to try to get some of those power shots in and try to get Dogboe out of there. I do believe that is his plan, but in order to do that, he has to cut off the ring, step to the side, cut off his exit paths, and then start landing those more powerful blows. Now, for Dogboe to win, I think you want to land the right hand. I think it's a shot to land against a southpaw, of course, and that's what you have in Ramirez, so that makes sense. And Dogboe has a decent right hand to begin with, so especially if you're stepping into it, it's certainly a blow that I think can pay off for you. It also, of course, can keep Ramirez honest if it lands consistently enough and early enough. If you can kind of keep him at least honest with the blows that you're throwing, it can allow for you to have more of those exits that you're looking for. It gives you more ownership of the space because he'll have to know that there is something coming back. This will, of course, also allow for you to get off the ropes and keep from being cornered, which I think Ramirez will look to try and do in this fight, and of course that means you're trying to neutralize it. And as mentioned, stay off the ropes. I think I should point this out a bit more, which is what I'm going to. Ramirez wants you on the ropes. I think there's pretty much no question about it. That is when he can really extend on those shots and use those angles to set things up. You have to limit that from happening. One of the ways in which you can do this is pushing forward, not always trying to circle out of harm's way. That's when fighters can get into a bit of trouble. Instead, push forward, tie him up if you need to. Even make it a little bit sloppy and messy. Just make sure you're not falling into shots, but that you're also smothering his work in the process. This also, of course, will allow for you to preserve more energy anyway. It's always going to burn a little more of that kind of reserve if you're stepping back and to the side every single time. So when you can step forward, lean on him, and at least tax him as much as you're being taxed, you're keeping it even and honest. And finally, I would say rip to the body. You throw to the body pretty well if you're Dogboe, so this is something that can definitely score well for you, but it also does a couple of things. Obviously, it's going to drain a little bit of the power from Ramirez, some of the snap from his shots. It'll slow him down potentially, and of course, make him think about coming in recklessly or anything along those lines, which I don't think he'll do, but certainly you want to make sure that you're trying to tame him as much as possible. Also, Ramirez has a bit of a higher guard, so those shots will be able to get in. And if you can land them well enough that it lowers the guard, it of course opens up some of those shots upstairs later on, which can of course pay off for you as the fight progresses. Now, in terms of my pick here, Dogboe is decent. I really do think that, but I do think Ramirez is more than that, and he wins this fight. Ramirez will feel him out in the first few rounds, maybe the first round or two, but will start coming forward in the early to middle rounds. The right hand, left hand combination from Ramirez will begin to land, push Dogboe back, and will keep him stuck to the ropes far too much for Dogboe's sake. In those full-on middle rounds, Dogboe will have to stand and fight more, but Ramirez will push him back further and probably drop him with one of those right hand, left hand combinations that I think he'll be getting more and more successful with. I think Dogboe will beat the count, but he will be stopped soon thereafter with the follow-up work up against the ropes, and I think the referee steps in. Winner, Robeisy Ramirez via mid-fight to late stoppage, but I'll hedge my bet and say mid, but I do think it could be a little later. Now, in terms of the betting odds here, you have Ramirez as a sizable favorite. He's coming in at almost a 7-1 at a minus 675, with Dogboe coming in at a plus 415. Now, there's some value in Dogboe if you just don't think Ramirez is worth the hype. Obviously, you're getting a 4-1 return on that, but personally, these are lines I would just stay away from. I do think Ramirez wins this fight, as I obviously mentioned, and you're not getting a great return for it, so that's not really something I'm looking forward to there. In terms of the over-under, it's set at 10.5 rounds with minus 160 for the over and the under at a plus 115. I have to tell you, I think there's a great deal of value in that under. I do think Ramirez stops him, and I do think it possibly happens in those middle to, like I said, middle to late rounds. You're getting a positive return on that bet, basically, because, again, you're getting to, the full 10 rounds at least. In my opinion, there's a great deal of value there, and if I were to lay a bet there, it might be something medium to relatively big, in my personal opinion. I do have a strong suspicion that Robeisy Ramirez does put on a bit of a show here. Of course, could be wrong, been wrong several times in the past, of course, but just my personal take on that particular over-under. But in any event, those are your odds. And in terms of my prediction record, I am 9-4 with 8 exact for the year thus far. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, so on and so forth. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcaldron_JOB. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out junboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and all that good stuff as well. And as always, until next time.